I'm trying to think back of where I was at in middle school and what I wish I had known. Um, Eye contact is way more important than you give it credit for. Eye contact is the way by which people signal interest in one another. So even though people's faces are generally pretty boring and you don't want to look them in the eye because there are more interesting things in rooms to look at, you should look them in the eye anyway, because it is basically a way of saying you are worth paying attention to. Likewise, if somebody is not making eye contact with you as you are trying to talk with them, it's a pretty strong indication that they do not want you to interact with them socially, and you should find some polite way to try and exit the conversation. You know, thank them for their time and leave and something like that. I would say it's very important to realize that people are invested in trying to maintain their image. If you ever do something that causes somebody to lose face, whether intentionally or not, then they will start acting in a more hostile manner towards you because they view you as a threat. So always be very aware of what people consider themselves to be good at and try not to challenge them in those areas. Always try to be aware of who might be watching the person that you're interacting with and try not to make them look bad in front of those people, which might also mean that you need to pay attention to who the people are watching are and what they consider to be important, especially with teachers. Teachers are a very bad person to accidentally embarrass. Make sure that there is turn-taking in conversation. When I was younger, I felt as though if I managed to retain control, like narrative control over the conversation, that it was less likely to go awry because the chances that somebody else would say something that would cause it to deviate off script would be lower. But if you don't give people a chance to respond in a conversation, then they become bored and no longer wish to interact with you. So make sure to give them time, and in all honesty, you will have a better conversation even if it goes slightly off script if you give them the opportunity to say things than if you just try to be the person who talks the entirety of the time. Just don't give up. You might feel like there are a lot of doors closed to you, but there are also a lot of doors open. Like I haven't spoken too much about it because I don't like talking about it because I feel like it's bragging, but there are strengths that come along with Asperger's syndrome. You know, you have a mind that works more logically and in some ways less emotionally, and so that gives you a lot of power in certain fields and disciplines. Computing, mathematics. Because of that, there are people who will be incentivized to want you in their company or in their lives or something like that. And because of that, as long as you're able to act socially passable, then, I mean, people are willing to forgive a few faux pas, especially if they understand what's going on. Through practice, you can become more socially adept. It will come slowly and it will only come through hard work, but you can train yourself to be more socially skilled as long as you don't give up. Finally, like I would say, do not allow the label to define you, allow the label to help you. I have a lot of friends with Asperger's syndrome that have missed out on a lot of opportunities because they have decided this is the way that I am, I cannot change, and so people should adapt to me instead of me adapting to them. And when that happens, then you damn yourself basically because you keep yourself from growing. Once you've decided that you are acceptable as you are, and if anybody does not accept you, that the problem lies with them, you stop growing, you stop learning. It is always worth it to learn how to become more socially acceptable, because in the end, if you can do a decent imitation of normal, then that will give people enough chance to learn who you really are and to value you as a person. But if you can't learn to do a passable imitation of normal, then people will reject you before they get to know you. And if they don't get to know you, then they have no reason to see all of your strengths.